श्रीनाथादिगुरुत्रयं गणपतिं पीठत्रयं भैरवं सिद्धौघं वटुकत्रयं पदयुगं धूतीक्रमं मण्डलं वीरान्ध्यष्टचतुष्कषष्टिनवकं वीरावळी पञ्चकं श्रीमन्मालिनिमन्त्रराजसहितं वन्दे गुरोर्मण्डलं माधर्मे मधुकैटभग्निमहिषः प्राणापहारोद्यमे हेलानिर्मितधूम्रलोचनवदे हे चण्डमुण्डार्धिनि निःशेषीकृतरक्तबीजदनुजे नित्ये निशुम्भापहे शुम्भध्वंसिनि संहरासु दुरितन् दुर्गे नमस्तेऽम्बिके दुर्गे नमस्तेऽम्बिके दुर्गे नमस्तेऽम्बिके. Śrīmad Devi Bhāgavatam, we are meeting after a long while, I guess, in the Devi Bhāgavatam sessions. We have been focusing on Sri Vidya theories and we are all trying to become theorists here. But let's get back to philosophy a little bit from Bhagavatam and try to apply that philosophy to the theories that we are learning. So today I want to take you through a very powerful sequence from the Śrīmad Devi Bhāgavatam where one story naturally leads into the next and finally lands up in the heart of Devi's teaching. First comes the story or the pastimes of King Pururavas. I'm taking you from exactly from 13 to 17 because the last Parayanam was 13 to 17. We did the Mula Parayanam, so I'm getting into the Bhashyam or the explanation for those chapters. So King Pururavas and Apsara Urvashi. It's a very interesting story, basically. Like Pururavas is a great king, capable, dharmic, and admired by his own people, and strong in governance. Urvashi descends to earth and due to a curse and chooses Pururavas as her husband actually. I'm cutting short a lot of stories because I'm expecting and I'm thinking that you are reading Bhagavatam actually. You were supposed to have the textbook and you're reading. So I'm just giving you the gist so that for you to understand what you're reading and how I'm trying to connect with the things. And Pururavas, like she wanted to marry Pururavas and make him as her husband, but she makes a strict agreement with him. He must protect her two young sheep like his own life. That she will eat only ghee, and she should never see him naked except in intimate union, and if any of these conditions break, she will leave him instantly. And Pururavas agrees to this actually. Time passes and the king becomes so deeply attached to Urvashi and he forgets his duties and lives or the lives of the people who were present, because after all, as a king he had a lot of things to deal with. And then Indra was missing Urvashi in the heaven. That was another part of the story because she belongs to Indra's kingdom, actually, the courtier of Indra. And what happens is that Indra sends Gandharvas to steal the two sheep actually because he thought this is the best way, because otherwise she's not going to come because she's very happy with Pururavas leading a very fantastic life, and she's not going to come. So this is what Indra does actually. Like, I'm very sorry to say, most of us do shortcuts and we land up primrosing like Indra actually, because the majority of the problem what Indra faces is because of the shortcuts he takes actually. That is what unfortunately it happens, and we also land up doing that. So what he does, like he sends Gandharvas to seize or the steal those sheeps actually, because this is one of the conditions of Urvashi, right? So hearing their cries, so what Urvashi is shocked and furious that she feels her trust has been broken and blames Pururavas for failing to protect them. In panic, Pururavas runs out immediately to chase them, but he runs out naked actually. And the Gandharvas flash lightning more further on this, because now they are further, they're damaging it actually, because this was also one of the rule actually. So the Gandharvas were flashing lightning on him, and Urvashi sees him naked, and the contract that was there. The people talk about contract marriage and everything in today's times, but trust me, this is there from the time of Bhagavatam actually. So, and the contract actually breaks. And what happens, the sheeps are returned, but it is too late actually. Though the king was able to find the ships, but it was too late because Urvashi feels that the agreement is broken. It is not going to work out anymore, and she wants to leave, and she just disappears because Urvashi has those powers because she's an Apsara. And of course, Pururavas was completely shattered and and he wanders across lands in grief. But when he finally meets Urvashi again, she tells him bluntly, like the breakup that happens in today's times, but it was a little philosophical there. That's the most interesting thing, the twist of the story. Urvasi, she says to Pururavas that the worldly attachment cannot be trusted and he should return to his kingdom, actually. In other words, it's over and done with, boss, and we are not getting back together. That's the thing she wanted to say, but she was putting it in a very sophisticated manner. After this, then we get into a different dimension. The Bhagavatam takes us into in another powerful episode with the birth of Sukadeva. This is one of the most favorite part for me actually, and I would like you all to read this in detail actually, because it's deeply connecting to various aspects of life, and this is something I read as a child when I was very young, actually, and that deeply motivated me for many things. Like when I was like hardly some 14 or 15, I read this, the birth and the life of Sukha Maharishi, actually, and I would insist that maybe you should read, and I wanted to know what is the reflections you have actually. So Vedavyasa was the father of Sukha Maharishi, and and what happens? It further moves in a way that there is this powerful episode that unfolds where Apsara Ghritachi for a moment comes across Vyasadeva, and it seems that Vyasadeva just had a kind of a disturbance while producing the sacred homam that he does on a day-to-day basis. And this kind of an episode happened where this Apsara, she passes through, and by looking at her, Vedavyasa's mind was disturbed actually, in that sense, like was attracted, in the other words, if I have to say. And from the just by that, just imagine like that attraction that happened for a fraction of second with Ghritachi, Apsara. It seems that and it is exactly that the Arani. The Arani is the specific stick that Vedavyasa is using in the Homam, and it seems that the sacred fire, along with the Arani stick, that is the Havan Samagri, that the summit, Arani summit, could get with the what to say that this attraction, that energy of that attraction together with that, what was seen to be that a radiant sun came out, which was like Sukha Maharishi. Actually, this is the way Sukha was born. Actually, you just imagine the powerful tapas of Vedavyasa Maharishi. Actually, how this powerful emanation can happen actually, and shining with tejas, like a second Vyasa was born without a womb actually, and the gods celebrate the birth, and rituals are performed, and Sukha Maharishi grows up quickly and studies the Vedas and the Shastras. Vyasa then urges Sukha with a classical way, that what the parents do in today's times, like to get married actually, like you have to get married. And but Sukha Maharishi is intelligent, not like the children of today's times, perhaps. Like, like there is this Vyasa is like advising Sukha to get married, like get into the Grihastha life, because he has to, like, continue the lineage and discharge the debts of the ancestors. But Sukha is Maharishi was very intensely dispassionate about the worldly life, and he argues that worldly pleasure are always mixed with pain, the attachment, and it creates bondage. This is the exact thing that I was inspired from Bhagavatam, as I was telling you, the conversation that happens between the father and the son. It's very deeply philosophical and very practical. So, and Sukha Maharishi goes to the extent of discussing that about liberation and true knowledge. Just imagine, he's trying to explain Vyasa out of everybody. Vyasa is some embodiment of all this, what we call the Brahma Jnanam. And his own son, has to teach or make Vyasa to remember all these aspects of life, actually, and all the troubles that can happen in a grihastha life, and how it is such a big obstacle, getting married, you know and Vyasa replies that even a householder can attain moksha if he lives with purity, duty, and inner detachment, just like the Sri Vidya theories, as we keep talking. And Vyasa Maharishi is introducing the Sri Vidya theories to his son, Sukha Maharishi, actually. And still, Sukha remains absolutely not convinced, like, I'm just not getting married and it is not just going to happen. And Vyasa was very upset with that, and he thought there is like one final solution we can do is to send his son, Sukha, that is Sukha Maharishi, to King Janaka of Mithila, actually. King Janaka of Mithila, who's very famous to be known as a Jivan Mukta, actually. A king known to be a Jivan Mukta. You just imagine the contradiction that can exist. How can a king be a Jivan Mukta, actually? And being a king, but being still liberated. And after a great debate, Sukha Maharishi accepts his father's request. It's not even an order, it was a request that came from the father. Finally, I should listen to my father. What is there in this King Janaka? What should I go and learn from him, or what is that I should observe? Because that is what my father is ultimately asking me to do. So let me listen to my father. At least, like, he's like not like today's children, who doesn't want to listen to parents. Like, he wants to say, okay, fine, I will listen, but on conditions I'm listening. Again, a kind of, what we learn, this is, it's coming as a trend that we learn from Sukha Maharishi. Okay, I will accept, but based on certain terms and conditions. T and C's are applied, actually. And uh, and and I, I and and there's a kind of a great deal of description, students. As I'm going on telling, you should read it. Actually, if you read a very good, an interpretation, the bhashyam that comes in, actually, Swami Vijnananda in English is a very classic interpretation. Actually, I do not know about other languages, but Swami Vijnananda would have has written in a beautiful manner the entire description of this particular segment, actually. And moving further, like, Sukha, how can someone punish, govern, and still be detached, actually? Because a king will do all these duties, right, actually? So, how can enjoyment be non enjoyment, actually? So, how can actions be non action? So, these were the questions which were there in Sukha Maharishi, actually. But he felt this is like worthy enough. If there is some individual like this, we should go and see, how he deals with things and what it is all about. So Sukha travels so far to reach Mithila, the kingdom of Janaka Maharaja. And at the gates, he was questioned and stopped, and he was tested at the gate itself. Just imagine, like, it's not that the king was a Brahmajnani, even the jnanis, the gatekeepers, the securities were also jnanis, it seems, in the kingdom of Janaka, actually. He speaks on, there's a great deal, that's the reason I'm asking, you should read to enjoy it, actually. There is a great deal of conversation that happens on attachment and non-attachment, on real enemies versus real friends. And the gatekeeper is so moved by the wisdom of Sukha, actually. And finally, Sukha was brought into the palace, because it seems that not everybody can enter into the palace. Only people who are worthy, they are supposed to be given an admission to enter, because you're going to meet Sukha Maharishi. So you should be up to those levels. Otherwise, why should he waste time on somebody, some XYZ person, actually? And finally, Sukha is brought into the palace, and here he sees, like, comes with a decisive test. Actually, Sukha is thinking, I am going to test this king, and I'm going to show to the world, not just to my father, what my father is just saying. So Sukha is having that idea in his mind, actually. Maharishi is having that kind of an idea. And of course, the minister, arranges all kinds of comfort, luxury, food, and a beautiful chamber, and sends the palace women to, who are skilled in music and arts, and the desire to serve Sukha Maharishi, actually. Yet Sukha remains completely unmoved with all these things. He's just not touched by any of these luxury that has been given to him actually. He sees them as mothers, these women as mothers, and finishes his Sandhya Kala, the rituals that he does, the mantra japam and everything, and he meditates and he sleeps in discipline, rises in the Brahma Muhurta in that palace actually, and he bathes and he goes to the Samadhi back into the meditation. His mastery was, it's not a show, but it is a natural inner freedom that Sukha Maharishi had, that which means that what the environment, the external environment couldn't touch him actually. He was not like us actually. Like what we say, kanna laddu tinna asaya, no, when the moment we say, like, we are like, oh, like, he was never that kind of, like that fascinated kind of a person actually. And in between these teachings shines the greatest secret, if I have to share with you, that the Devi's instruction to Hari, that is the ultimate truth, that all that is seen is Devi herself, was actually practiced by Sukha Maharishi actually, because this is what Devi tells to Hari, that is Vishnu, during the Madhu and Kaitaba Vadam actually, if you remember, I am the one who is controlling you. You are sleeping, you woke up, everything is because of my Shakti actually, Yoga Nidram Gamishyate, like Devi says this actually, you are in Yoga Nidra because of me, and you got up because of me, and you're going to fight Madhu and Kaitaba because of me actually. It's everything is a Shakti that is there, and you are, and everything is with me, and everything is nothing is beyond me, and you, Hari, you are also the Devi Swarupam, the Devi Tattva. So that is what is applied precisely here by Sukha Maharishi, that he is able to see Devi in everything, and nothing else is, and nothing else is eternal. Everything is Devi Swarupam actually. So what is happening is that these chapters move like a river, if I have to say, and Pururavas shows how attachment can enslave the best, and Sukha shows the fire of renunciation and the discrimination, and Janaka shows the paradox of living in a world yet not being in it actually, and Devi stands behind all this as Mahamaya, who binds, and as Mahavidya, who liberates, the tattvas that is present within us. So now, if I have to really give a kind of a interpretation to you all as students to understand what this chapters actually mean, like what we have just been done, the Shmula Parayana Śravaṇam, like, I mean, let's begin with Pururavas and Urvashi to understand the interpretations. Like, Pururavas is a very powerful king, students, very intelligent, capable, and skilled in governance, as I mentioned, and as the text in itself, describes his glories. Actually, he knows diplomacy, strategy, and warfare, and he ruled according to dharma. That's the reason he was a world famous king. There is no doubt, and he performed yaga yajnadi karyas. He was a king in the truest sense. Actually, he gave charity, and he was extremely perfect. We have to understand that. Yet, what happened? Urvashi entered the life actually. You understand? So one Urvashi entered his life, and life got finished. So, and gradually he became, so what all he was governing so good, what all he was seen to be perfect, everything became imperfect actually. Why? Because of the foundation, that the attachment actually. The attachment which he developed for Urvashi. And because of the attachment, what happened? He has forgotten dharma and lost himself to pleasure. And unfortunately, Pururavas forgot that the pleasure that this world is giving is going to ultimately reverse into what is called as pain actually. So when as sadhakas we have to understand, when there is so much of pleasure is coming in life, बेटा थोड़ा सा सुधर जाओ, थोड़ा सा कॉशन रहो, उसके बाद पीछे से कुछ आ रहा है तुम्हारे लिए, सो डोंट बी सो हैप्पी, थोड़ा शांत रहो, शांति इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. दिस इज व्हाट इज द वर्ल्डली truth actually, and that's the reason the sadhakas, the upasakas are trained in such a way that you see everything as the gift of Devi. You don't take the ownership actually, the sense of ownership that we are constantly understanding from the Sri Vidya theories. Good is happening, okay, bad is happening, still okay only, like nothing is, because I am not part of everything, like it is happening, I am just witnessing, that idea is the central for the practice actually. And what happened with Pururavas? If Pururavas, you just imagine a king coming from an exaltatory dynasty, bloodline, and everything, he couldn't do what is called as, to decipher this attachment versus detachment, and which led to what is called as, in our Srividya language, the clouded buddhi. He landed up in the clouded buddhi basically, and he could not understand the discriminatory elements that were actually involved in it actually. So this is not about a man and women, students. We have to even think from that dimension. Though the story explicitly talks about a man and a woman, this is about consciousness descending into fascination, actually. Consciousness descending into fascination. So, in our Srividya theories, if we have to put it in that perspective, we speak of the descent through the Maya and five Kanchukas. Yes or no? The Maya and the five Kanchukas. The limitation of knowledge, limitation of power, the limitation of time, the limitation of desire, the limitation of space. When consciousness forgets its fullness and identifies with a single object of pleasure, that is Pururavas losing himself in Urvashi, actually. Yes or no? Pururavas is losing himself into Urvashi. So Urvasi places conditions. Yes or no? As we understood that Urvasi is placing conditions. Do not let me see you naked except in union. Protect these two lambs. If you fail, I will leave. What are these lambs actually, if we can carefully understand? In deeper contemplation, I understand that these lambs are nothing but prana and apana. Prana and apana, the twin currents in life actually. They represent the fragile dualities we are constantly guarding, that is our reputation, our ego, and our identity actually. Got it, all of you? So, what is happening? The Gandharvas are stealing the lamps, lightning the flashes when Pururavas is naked, and Urvashi sees Pururavas as naked actually. So, what is happening? Lightning is a sudden illumination, and nakedness is the exposure of that ego actually. And attachment, therefore, completely collapses. In one moment of unconsciousness, everything is lost actually. Tell me honestly, is this not our daily life? Yes or no? You know, one careless reaction at work, one uncontrolled word in family, one impulsive emotional outburst, years of instability, years of stability, in fact, shakens within seconds actually. Years of relationship, trust, build, lost in a word actually. Yes or no? So Pururavas, then what happens? Let's move forward. Pururavas then wanders in grief actually. The wandering is what? It is an enslaved mind by desire actually. Of course, he is such a great king, as we are going on talking, highly educated, highly compassionate, highly learned, highly religious. But when, in spite of having all these things, how we can be pulled down, you just see actually. He's like literally lamenting for Urvashi and running street after streets. He's not able to see what he actually have, a king with a kingdom actually, but completely lost. But he's got into this one thing actually, that Urvashi. So no matter whatever we have, nothing is going to give us fulfillment. This is the truth. You might have money, you might have relationships, you might have bank balance. We just wanted them for our own insecurities actually. And within a moment, our mind can be twisted from any of these things actually. And it can get into worst, or it might get into better. We don't know. But these are just objects which we think is liberating us, but they are actually binding us to a set of identities actually. Yes or no? Actually, if you look into it, that is the truth actually. This is not misogyny, this is metaphysics basically. That's what I see. The world cannot give permanent fulfillment actually. The object was never seen as a source of joy. The joy was actually to be projected from within. Antarmukha samaradhya bhahir mukha sudurlabha, as we were discussing in our theories. So, in Sri Vidya, if I have to put within the Sri Vidya perspective, the bliss, ananda, we attribute to the object is actually our own Ananda Shakti reflected through the Maya actually, and not from the external sources actually. It can never be external sources. Anandam can be that, or happiness or the bliss can be that we can emanate from ourselves. You understand what I'm trying to say? If we are looking for that Anandam from the external source, Gaya kam se. Any external source, if you are going to look for Anandam, you are you your lamentation, you I mean your problems, you be with you. You understand what I'm trying to say? So that is what is deeply contemplated here actually as a theory. Now let's move to the story of Sukha Maharishi's birth actually. So Vyasa, the great sage, is momentarily disturbed. That's what Bhagavatam the language of Bhagavatam, because very carefully it has to put the language, because Veda Vyasa, after all, Vyasa is the foundation for the entire, the segregation of the Vedas, the entire Puranas, you understand. So to talk about Vyasa, the language has to be very correct. But still, Vyasa himself was disturbed. You have to understand this. Are you able to follow what I'm trying to say? So in a way, the scriptures are asking us not to be so harsh upon ourselves actually, like you go through, it's a process, you go through the process. Vyasa went through the process, like Sukha Maharishi went through a process, the great sages, the kings, and everybody went through a process. And you are also going through a process, basically. You don't have to put yourself into that harsh mechanism, or a kind of, we are definitely setting a standard, or a kind of a mechanization. But it is okay to go here and there a little bit. But what is very important is that you walk in the path, actually. It's not the doubt on the path. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like we think, the foundational question, um, which we ourselves ask, or people who observe us ask, the thing, like if we are letting people know that we are spiritual, or we are doing some practices, immediately the judgmental question will come from them. You are so religious and spiritual, why you do XYZ things, like you are so religious, but how do you land up getting so anger, how do you land up shouting actually? This is one of the common things that happens. You're so spiritual, but how can you be like this? Like, I am spiritual. Like, that's a fundamental part of my life and existence. That doesn't mean that I'm not a human, actually. I am a human, definitely. I recognize myself as a human. Are you able to follow what I'm trying to say? There is a kind of a constant pull and push that a spiritual person should be in this particular manner. You understand what I'm trying to say? They are supposed to dress in a particular manner. They are supposed to speak a particular manner. They are supposed to eat a particular kind of a food. They're supposed to think in a particular direction. They're supposed to project themselves in a particular direction. I am done with these things, seriously. Like, thanks to Tantra, it actually liberates us from these ideas and thought process. You understand what I'm trying to say? That constant projection that we need to give, that, I am a spiritual person, or I am a religious person, actually. So, because we are not saying that, the scriptures are very clearly saying that Vyasa could get into a momentarily disturbance. You understand what I'm trying to say? If Vyasa can get into a momentarily disturbance, I am also, if Vyasa, then I am like a normal human actually, and I'm trying myself, and I'm trying my best. So it's fine. So what I'm trying to say is that it's fine to go through the process, and that process is what is called as sadhana, that we need to understand, and we need to trust. We need to keep trusting the path and the process, because the path is not flaw, students. Please understand. The flaw is, I wouldn't even say that we have the flaws. We are made up in a particular manner, and we have been asked to walk a particular space. So there is some kind of contraction, and the expansions are there, but we are working on it. And that working is what is called as sadhana, basically. People have a very fantasy idea about being a sadhaka, but trust me, It is the, it is, with my experience, if I have to say, it is, you stand yourself, you are, you blatantly, you expose yourself in front of the mirror and you accept this is what you are, and you have to go from there to the next, I am working on myself and I'm moving to the next levels actually, which normal people cannot do it. Are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? None of us are perfect here, including me. That's the reason we want to do sadhana. But whereas people, if you talk to others, they will say that we are the most perfect people on this planet Earth, actually. They will talk like this and they will behave like this, when we talk about sadhana and all these things, like, I mean, so anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that sadhana is a path for us to go through the process actually, and there is nothing that we have to be judgmental about ourselves or others actually. That is what I'm trying to unveil here actually. So moving back, like Vyasa, um, the momentary disturbance by beauty, and this and his bijam falls upon the, because of that attraction, his bijam falls on the arani stick, and that getting in relationship with the fire, and then Sukha arising out of that actually, Sukha Maharishi arising out of the luminous fire, the fire becoming a womb actually. What is this symbolism? It is, the fire arises from the friction, that is consciousness, arises when tapas and disturbance meet actually. Tapas and disturbance meeting together, what is happening? There is a consciousness that is arising actually. And Sukha is born out of that tapas and samskara, and not of any kind of a biological attachment actually. This is what is very important for us to understand, and I can talk about this in a bit in a deep understanding, but you need to come up to those levels of sadhana so that we can talk about this in a very um, detailed or explicit manner. But here, to put it in a practical sense, this means what? To the pragmatic life that we lead, like that, the real wisdom is not born from indulgence basically. It is born from the friction between the longing versus the discipline that is there actually, the longing versus the discipline. Sukha grows instantly illuminated actually because of the tejas, the bijam is that is carried in Vyasa, because years together of tapas which is there, it could fall on the ground as the seed actually, as the bijam actually, and that is the tejas that Sukha Maharishi carried, and that he could study the Vedas, and but when, and everything in a very easy manner. When Vyasa asks Sukha Maharishi to marry and enter a householder's life, Sukha Maharishi refuses basically, and this needs to be, here is what many misunderstand. Perhaps this is not a contradiction. This is an eternal engagement or a dialogue that happens between what is renunciation and what is engagement. Actually, the difference between renunciation and engagement. And Sukha sees the bondage in marriage basically, and Vyasa sees liberation in detachment amidst actions. This is the two perspectives that is emerging, that is what, let me put it once again, like, I mean, renunciation versus engagement. And Sukha Maharishi sees the bondage in marriage, and Vyasa sees liberation in detachment amidst the actions. So in the understanding of Sri Vidya, that is the real difference is between, what we are understanding is rejecting Shakti versus recognizing the Shakti. This is the two major differences that we are bringing in from the dialogue that is there between the father and son, Sukha Maharishi and Vyasar, that recognizing the Shakti and rejecting the Shakti. So if you reject the world, you may not transcend the Maya, basically. That is what Sukha Maharishi, father Vyasaji, is saying actually. If you are attached to the world, you are bound by Maya. That is what is the argument coming from the sun. So if you see the world as Devi, as an expression of Devi, then you are free. You are free. And this is what Bhagavatam brings Janaka into the nature. So what happens? Janaka, King Janaka, he rules, he punishes, he governs, he enjoys wealth, yet he is called to be a Jivan Mukta. And Sukha cannot understand this, because how can somebody act and yet to be unattached? This is the central teaching for all of us sitting here, that working in offices, running businesses, and managing families, we can still think spirituality as a means of escaping work. You think moksha means leaving these responsibilities, but which is not the truth as far as Janaka's case is concerned. And this is what the teaching that we are deriving. Janaka Maharaja represents the ideal Srividya Tattva. That is, the Sri Chakra itself is not empty or void. It is structured manifestation, the triangles within triangles and the actions within the stillness. So Devi is unmoving, yet everything moves. So Janaka is that principle embodied, which we need to understand from the Shakta tradition. The traditional theories that we are talking about. So Janaka governs externally, but internally he remains in the Bindu. He's remaining in the Bindu. I can see Lalitama is enjoying whatever I'm interpreting. Thank you so much, Lalitama. This is so reassuring, looking into her reactions. Thank you so much. So when Sukha arrives in Mithila, he sees the markets, the trades, the quarrels, the attachments, like just our cities have in today's times, actually. But he remains unmoved, as I told you, he's completely unmoved with everything. Then comes the crucial episode. He's placed amidst the palace, the palatial facilities, the luxury, the women, and all the sensuous atmosphere he was given. And yet he remains steady. Why? Because he does not suppress desire. He has dissolved identification. He has dissolved identification. That is, in Sri Vidya theories, the prana is stabilized. He is not merely breathing, he has prana shakti. The mind is purified. The kanchukas are totally thinned. The aham has returned closer to the pure form that Sukha Maharshi is having the least or maybe nil completely, because he's a Jivan Mukta. Aham versus Idam debate is no longer there in Sukha Maharshi actually. Got it, all of you? So, when the pranan is restless, the senses dominate. The senses are dominating. And when pranan is balanced, awareness remains the sovereign. This is why, we start with the foundations of daily japam, a small puja, the mantratmika pranayamam, chanting of Devi Mahatmyam. These are not rituals, they are the nervous system to be trained actually, so that it can control and it can absorb the shakti that is there in the pranan actually. It can intertwine everything together. If your pranan is stable, your office stress cannot shake you, actually. I can see a lot of corporate professionals are listening to me. If your pranan is stable, family conflicts cannot destabilize you, basically. A lot of grihastha are also listening to me. So this is for you, basically. If your pranan is stable, temptations cannot enslave you, actually. So Sukha Maharshi slept 3 hours. I'm saying slept because that is the language we understand. So I'm saying it's like samadhi, like he got into samadhi for hours together of meditation, rose in Brahma Muhurtam, bathed and getting into samadhi again. What it is all about? He's having that rhythmic pattern within him, unlike most of us here who doesn't have a pattern actually. You understand? When I'm talking about pattern, I'm not saying that 10 o'clock going to office and 6 o'clock coming back and 8 o'clock logging in for the class actually. That is not the pattern I'm talking. That is one pattern for the physical external self. The pattern for the internal self actually. Though we are through the physical self, we are going to the internal self, there is no doubt. But you are learning this now actually. The rhythm and how this modern life unfortunately lacks the rhythm. Therefore, the modern mind lacks stability, which was much more there in the ancient life actually. Now, to connect all these things with Devi, even when Vyasa weeps under Maya, Sukha Maharishi says, "Oh, what is the power of this Yoga Maya?" Because his father is forcing him to get married, and he's getting upset, like why a Jivan Mukta should get upset on this. Maharishi Vyasa is like feeling, so bad about it. Even Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, they are not beyond Devi. In Sri Vidya, as we have understood the foundation theories, that Maya is not illusion. It is not a negative in the it's not illusion per se in the negative sense. Maya tattva is one aspect of Devi, that is the creative power of differentiation actually. This is something we need to understand. If you don't understand this aspect of Maya, she binds you, that is Maya is binding you. And if you understand this aspect of Maya, she is liberating us basically. The same Devi who appears to Vishnu, on the banyan leaf, and declares herself that she is she is seen to be the everything, and she is also the external and the internal aspects of this world. You remember the first chapter in Bhagavatam, when where the first appearance as Bhuvana Ishwari, Bhuvana Ishwari, she appears to Mahavishnu actually. So that this is the foundation for our Mahavidya. This is the heart of Sri Vidya basically. Everything, students, like your office, your family, your struggles, your ambitions, is Devi's play actually. When you think this is mine, it is a bondage. And when you think this is her expression, then that is the central theory of Sri Vidya, which is Swatantrata, that is freedom actually. When you think this is her expression, it is absolutely freedom that we have been talking in terms of the theories. So, what is that practical thing that I'm trying to put in across with today's, bhashyam of Devi Bhagavatam is that Pururavas teaches attachment without awareness destroys discrimination. Sukha Maharishi teaches dispassion without compassion becomes completely dry. There's a dryness in that. Vyasa Maharishi teaches us that engagement with detachment is superior. And Janaka Maharaja is teaching us you rule the kingdom and still remain untouched actually. So Devi teaches all these aspects of me actually, whether it is Pururavas, whether it is Vyasa, whether it is Janaka, whether it is Sukha, I am the one, and that is what she's asking us to understand. And in your work life, particularly, if I have to give this tip as your teacher, you do your duty fully, but do not derive the identity from praise to blame, actually. You do this, and in your family, love deeply, but do not make another human being the source of your existential completeness, actually. And in your sadhana, do not escape the responsibilities. Transform these perceptions actually. And Sri Vidya, as we are saying, it is not anti-world, it is a trans world basically. The ascent we discussed, purification of chitta, the expansion of awareness, and the dissolution of the kanchukas, the stabilization of the pure aham. The ascent must happen in the marketplace of Mithila, basically, not only in a forest. You understand that the city versus, the attachment versus detachment I'm talking about. So if you sit in your office cabin like Sukha Maharishi sat in a palace, calm amidst glamour, calm amidst politics, calm amidst noise, then you are actually practicing Sri Vidya in real. If you can handle money like Janaka without greed, handle relationships without possession, handle success without arrogance, handle failure without collapse, then you are waking up, you are walking, in the reverse movement of the Sri Vidya from multiplicity back to unity. And finally, remember this, that Devi as Mahamaya binds, Devi as Lalita liberates, Devi as Durga reveals, and Devi as Tripura Sundari smiles from that one point that is Bindu, and she's present equally in Urvashi's beauty, Sukha's dispassion, Vyasa's anxiety, Janaka's wisdom, and your daily life. So the question is not whether Maya exists, the question is, are we conscious with Devi's play and we recognize that it is she who is doing everything and I am not the one who is a part of this? This is the foundation of these chapters, and I hope we will be able to learn further by her kripa alone. Thank you so much. Let me finish the class with Mangalam. सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोऽस्तु ते जयन्ती मङ्गला काली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवा धात्री स्वाहा स्वधा नमोऽस्तु ते ॐ शान्तिः 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 सर्वं श्रीचण्डी महालक्ष्मी अर्पणमस्तु तथास्तु